they stood for me.
All right. Court is in session. The Right Dishonourable Lord Dobbins.
Mr. Levine, call your first witness.
Opening statements first, Judge.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm Steve Levine, and I have the great honor and privilege to represent Emily V. in her pursuit of justice against Sweet Ride Motors. In this case, you're going to learn a little bit about the used car business. And you're not going to like what you're going to learn, because you're going to see how easy it is for somebody like that to take advantage of somebody like my clients or any of you. You know, growing up, I was taught something called the Mama Rule. Mama Rule basically says that you should treat everybody the way you want your own mama treated. Well, he never heard about Mama Rule. They abused and victimized my client, and she's coming to you for justice. Now, my client's a real special young lady. Let me tell you a little bit about her. She attends the University of Texas at Arlington, where she's studying to become a nurse. She puts herself through school by working full-time as a waitress. Like I said, she's an exceptional person. About a year and a half ago, she had a little problem, because she had a 10-year-old car, and it was starting to act up on her, and she needs good, reliable, honest transportation to get her to and from school and work every day. So she goes to Mr. Ride's car lot, Sweet Ride Motors. Even the name's misleading. Should be more like taking her for a ride. She's going around the car lot, and she sees a 2008 Honda Civic that she likes. She goes closer, and she sees some big, bright, fluorescent letters, Smooth Ride. She sees other big, bright, fluorescent letters, One Owner. These are big, bright, fluorescent representations that a car dealer puts on the cars to attract people like Emily to go look at those cars. But they were big, fat, fluorescent misrepresentations. They were lies. They were dishonest. But who cares a little bit about the truth when you're trying to sell cars and make money? That's what's called greed. Not business, greed. So she's walking around, she sees this car. Salesman comes over and asks her if she'd like to take a test drive. Salesman's name is Sam, so they go on a test drive. When they're on the test drive, she asks Sam. Sam's the salesman that he pays to sell cars to customers. She asks, is this really a one-owner car? He says, oh yeah, you bet it is. She asks, what else can you tell me about this car? And he says, well, our in-house mechanics have looked at it, and it's in good, dependable condition. Well, heck, she's hearing it's a sweet ride, it's a one-owner car, it's in good, dependable condition, so she's excited. What he failed to tell her, what he omitted from that conversation, was the car was previously owned by a rent-a-car company, so it was driven by tons of people, and when they got the car, they already sold it to somebody else and had to take it back because it had an engine problem. But he doesn't say any of that. All she knows is, sweet ride, one-owner car, good, dependable condition. So based on all that, she wants to buy the car. Only problem is the car's selling for about $14,000, and Emily, like you, me, the rest of the world, she doesn't have $14,000 to buy the car right then and there, so she needs to finance it. She tells him I can afford $400 a month. She even tells him when she wants the payment to be scheduled so she can meet all her other obligations. They strike a deal, and she's excited. She just bought a car, she leaves the car lot. I wish the story ended there, but it doesn't. She gets home, she comes out the next morning, she looks and oil's leaking. So she takes it back, the car's covered by a 30-day warranty, she takes it back, and they fix it. About a week later, oil's leaking again. She takes it back. This time she can't get the car fixed because Sam, the salesman, well, he's upset because he's been calling her, asking her out, and she won't go out with him. So he decides to take it upon himself in front of other customers, in front of people at the dealership. He tells the mechanic, I wouldn't spend too much time working on this one because she's going to stiff us on a payment. Now, she's mortified. She's humiliated. She leaves the lot crying, embarrassed. She doesn't know what to do. Next thing you know, she starts getting collection calls. And that doesn't make any sense to her. She's getting all these collection messages. She doesn't know why. Because her payment's not due yet. Well, it turns out the deal they made at the lot and the deal they put down on the contract were two different deals. Because in the contract it says that she's supposed to pay $200 every 2 weeks. And that's a big difference than $400 a month to somebody like Emily who lives paycheck to paycheck and has to schedule out her payments. So she's delinquent. Well, she makes good. She gets some money together, she makes good on that payment, but she's still got an holiday. She's driving around, she's hoping disaster doesn't strike, she's filling up her car with a quart of oil here and there, she's checking every day, she's making sure that she doesn't get left stranded. Lo and behold, one day disaster does strike. Car starts overheating, smoke's coming out, the gauges are going crazy. She doesn't know what to do. She pulls into the nearest Pep Boys. And they look at it and they say, well, wait a second, you got a major seal leak. You got a big problem here. That's going to cost you $500. She doesn't have $500. She just spent all the money she had buying the car. She doesn't know what to do. So she does the only thing she can think of. Car's still covered by warranty. She goes to see him. Surely he's going to do the right thing. Surely he knows about the mama rule. Well, no, he doesn't know about the mama rule. First, he tells her he's not going to fix it. He'll only cover half of it, but she's got to pay the other half. Then, he says, I'm not going to do anything until you make your next payment. That's due in 5 days. So 5 days, he holds the car hostage until she makes her next payment. She's even got to arrange for a ride home from the lot. Well, she gets the car back, and it's still leaking oil. So finally, she's had enough. She goes to Pep Boys, and she spends the $500, and she gets the darn car fixed. And then she's got a little bit of a problem, because she can't make her next payment. So she does what any reasonable person would do. She calls his car lot and says, hey, I just spent $500 to get this car fixed that you should have been able to fix and you never did. Could you push back my payment a little bit? No, I don't give her an answer. No. Then one day she's at work. Somebody runs in and says, hey, there's some big guy in the parking lot taking your car. She goes out there and one of her coworkers is in an argument with this guy. They get into a tussle. She gets in the middle. She gets thrown to the ground, scrapes, bruises, scratches, sprains her wrist. And this big guy jumps in the car and drives off with her. Those are the facts, ladies and gentlemen. That's the evidence you're going to hear today. What are you going to do about it? Because you got the power to do something about it. Judge Dobbins, he's going to give you instructions. He's going to tell you what the law is in a case like this. And then you're going to take the law and you're going to combine them with the facts and you're going to reach a decision. And it's important that you realize that our burden of proof in this case is a preponderance of the evidence. A little more likely than not, 51%. And we're easily going to be able to meet that burden because the facts that you're going to hear are outrageous. And then once you decide that you want to rule in favor of my client, you're going to have to award damages to compensate her, to make her whole. And we're going to ask you to award actual damages. We're going to ask you to award damages for things like the down payment and the trade-in and things like that. And she lost her job as a result of a fight, so we're going to ask you for an award of lost wages too for the money she lost. And then we're going to ask you to award things that they're not actual damages, that they're more nebulous. Things like her emotional distress and the humiliation she had to endure and all the aggravation, driving around with quarts of oil, always being worried, the collection calls, just the humiliation, everything. We're going to ask you to award a number for that. And there's no exact number for that. I'm going to make you some suggestions, but it's up to you. You're going to decide what you think is fair. And then finally, we're asking for punitive damages because we want you to punish him. There's only 3 reasons you give punitive damages. It's to punish him for the conduct, the way he treated her. It's to make sure he never treats anybody else like that again. And it's to make sure every other car dealer in this area, in Tarrant County, hears about this case and says, nope, we're not going to let you treat people like that. Ladies and gentlemen, you have an important job and great responsibility. You're the ones that can do justice, that can make her whole, that can restore her. Emily needs your help. Thank you.
Mr. Reedy, opening statements.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my name is Jay Reedy. I'm here representing Sweet Ride Motors. This gentleman right here represents Sweet Ride Motors, and he's been the owner of that entity for many, many years. I've been trying cases in Texas for over 25 years, and I've learned throughout that time to trust the collective wisdom and intelligence and intuition of the jury. I trust you to hear the evidence today and to make the appropriate decision based on the facts and evidence as you hear them today. It's up to you to weigh the credibility of the witnesses. One thing that's very important that I want to stress, you need to know this. I trust you to know the difference between the wild, irresponsible allegations that you heard this plaintiff's lawyer right here make, which must have been very difficult for my client to sit there calmly and listen to. This lawyer in this expensive suit and this loud yellow tie has the temerity to pretend to present the evidence to you in his opening statement. That is not evidence, ladies and gentlemen, and it's up to you to know the difference. Evidence is only what you hear, what Judge Dobbins allows in the record from the witness stand. I've represented Sweet Ride Motors for many years. I've gotten to know Tom and his family, and I know that they're a hard-working bunch of folks. They run a family business, and thanks to them, there's a lot of folks that have a car to drive to work every day. As Mr. Levine made his opening statement, I couldn't help again to think how hard it was for Tom to listen to those crazy statements. He made it sound like Sweet Ride Motors is some kind of a greedy, dishonest company, something like you'd see on TV, something like you'd see on an outrageous sitcom that was drafted or created by crazy people in Hollywood. And I'm here to tell you that these kinds of stereotypes and overgeneralizations can be dangerous, and they're far from the truth. These overgeneralizations that Mr. Levine has made against my client simply are not true, ladies and gentlemen. And all my client has to protect him in this case, where the plaintiff's lawyer is seeking punitive damages, is you, the jury. The plaintiff would have you believe that she's been victimized, but I think that after the evidence has been presented today, and after the judge concludes the trial, I think that you'll agree with me that perhaps it's my client who has in fact been victimized. The attorney's fees that he's had to spend have been, although reasonable, have been substantial. Very reasonable. The truth is that this is not a case about an oil leak. This is not a case about deceptive salespeople in a business. This is a case about promises, and it's a case about keeping promises. It's a case about making promises and keeping those promises. She has lots of excuses for her failure to pay. You're going to hear about oil leaks. You're going to hear her say that there was somebody that was mean to her. My client is not the kind of person that's mean to anybody. You can tell that just by looking at her. She's going to say that her car leaked. She's going to say that they sold her a rent car and that she wanted the car that was driven by the little old grandmother once a week on Sunday afternoon. That's not the truth, ladies and gentlemen. I have to rely upon you to discern the truth from what you've heard thus far. During this trial, you're going to get to know Ms. V, and you're going to get to weigh her credibility. You're going to get to decide who she really is. Is she the nursing student who makes life and death decisions? Who's on the honor roll and makes straight A's? Or is she the poor little girl that ended up in my client's office and didn't have an idea about what might be in a contract or whether or not she ought to even look at it? Is she the person who's buying her first car? Who didn't even know she needed to read a contract? Didn't know that she had to be responsible for the promises that she made? Didn't even know that a contract basically meant that she was making a promise? Or is she that Dean's List, attractive young lady who has her whole career ahead of her as a nurse? It's really a fascinating contradiction that she's trying to sell you, ladies and gentlemen. And again, it's up to you to weigh the credibility of the witnesses and decide for yourself who's really telling the truth here. My client, during the course of the trial, is looking forward to you getting to know about him and his family and his family-owned business. And the truth is, ladies and gentlemen, that if Sweet Ride Motors were anywhere near as corrupt as the plaintiff's lawyer has made them sound, they would have been out of business years ago. But the truth is, ladies and gentlemen, they're going on their 5th decade of being in business. The simple fact that this whole case is built on the premise that he wants to repossess cars, that's what the plaintiff would have you believe. It's just simply not true. That it's in their best interest, they claim, to mistreat people, to be mean to people, and to trick them in the F&I office when they're signing contracts. Not true, ladies and gentlemen. The fact is, Ms. V couldn't afford to buy a car outright. There's nothing wrong with that. That happens every day. Many of us are in that situation. She had to finance that car. And so my client financed the car for her. That's what they do. They finance cars. Lots of people finance cars, and they charge interest for that. There's nothing wrong with that. The point is, they want to get paid back. That's how they make their money, by collecting the interest and the payments over a period of time. Nothing unusual about that circumstance. Unfortunately, in this case, they didn't get paid back. They were forced to repossess the vehicle in question because Ms. V simply didn't keep her promises. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is a case that is fairly simple. It's about this young lady who failed to make and keep her promises. She's going to have you think that this case is about a lot of other things, that it's a big case with lots of smoke coming out of it. It's not, ladies and gentlemen. It's up to you to discern the truth. Finally, I think we can all agree that Ms. V, the plaintiff, is a very attractive young lady, and that my client is, well, he's a flamboyant dresser. Let's leave it at that. Please do not let that get in the way of good judgment in this case, and if you're doing the right thing. Thank you.
Mr. Levine, call your first witness.
Your Honor, the plaintiff calls Emily D. Please state your name for the record.
Emily V.
What do you do for a living?
I'm actually a full-time student at the University of Texas in the nursing program, but I also have a full-time job at the Burger Shack as a waitress.
You worked all your way through college?
I have. I actually started working in high school when I was 16.
You bought this lawsuit against Sweet Ride Motors because of your purchase of a 2008 Honda Civic, right?
That is correct.
Please share with the jury why you filed this lawsuit.
I filed the lawsuit because Sweet Ride Motors cheated me by selling the Civic to me without telling me about the serious leak and about all of the previous owners. I was, in the end, left with no money, no car, and that's just not right.
Let's talk about your purchase. Bought the Civic about a year ago, July, right?
Correct.
Please tell the jury about your visit to Sweet Ride's car lot.
Well, I walked in, I was looking around at all the various cars. I knew I wanted a Honda because I heard that they're reliable cars. I knew that I could only afford a smaller model. And then while walking around, I came across the 2008 Civic, and based on what I've been looking at, it seemed to be exactly what I needed.
What else attracted you to this specific car?
The price just seemed right. There was, as you said, the big fluorescent one owner and the no haggle price of $13,900, and of course they're not going to put that the oil leak was on there, So I thought, okay, this is a pretty good deal.
Did they have big fluorescent letters on the windows?
Yes,
Were you attracted to those?
most definitely.
And they said one owner and Sweet Ride, right?
Yes, yes they did.
So then you met a salesman on that lot. What happened next?
Well, the salesman Sam came up to me and said that I could take it for a test drive. He said we'd have to fill out some paperwork. So I filled out some paperwork and we ran around the block.
And he went with you?
He did.
During the drive, did you ask him any questions about the car?
I did. I had him confirm that it had only been owned previously by one owner because that was super important to me. And he said that, yeah, one owner and that it had no problems.
Did he say anything else about the car?
He told me that I actually was smart for looking for a one-owner car because, as we discussed the conversation, you know, one-owner cars have more of a chance of things being wrong with them because who knows how the people drive the cars. So.
Did you later learn that the one-owner claim wasn't true?
Correct. I found out that it had been owned once before, and it was returned for engine problems, I believe that it was. And then it was also owned by Thrifty Car Rentals, I believe was the name of the rental company. So obviously, as a rental car, many people are driving it.
And Sam, their salesman, he never told you any of that during the test drive, did he?
Oh no, and he should have, because I made it very, very clear that I wanted a one-owner car. That was very important to me.
Would you have purchased the car if you'd been told that it was previously a rental car?
Absolutely not.
Now, getting back to the test drive, did you ask him anything else about the car?
Well, I asked about the condition of the car, and he said that it was checked out by their in-house mechanic and it was in good and dependable condition.
Were those his exact words?
Exact words. Good and dependable condition.
That wasn't true, was it?
Completely far from it.
Well, what happened next?
Well, I decided that since it was represented as a one-owner car, had all these, you know, very attractive signs on it with the pricing and just the type of car that it is. After the test drive, I told Sam that I wanted to buy it.
Would you have bought the car had he not told you it was in good and dependable condition?
No, I would have kept on looking.
So then what happened?
Well, we went into his office, and he had me fill out a ton of paperwork that he actually wouldn't even let me see. He just was flipping through them really quickly and telling me, well, this is this and that's that. Oh, and you don't need to worry about that. Just initial here, sign there. I asked what my monthly payments would be. He asked me what I needed them to be. I said $400 because that's all I can budget. Told him I needed them around the 18th of the month. He said, you know, I can do $400 for you for every month, but I'm going to need another $500 down for your payment, or for your down payment. I said I could do that. So I put out another extra $500 so that my payments could be $400.
So did you and him agree that the price would be $13,900 and that you were going to have a $2,000 down payment and then you were going to make $400 monthly payments?
That's correct.
Was limiting your monthly payment to $400 really important to you?
It was, because that's the most that I budget. I don't make a whole lot of money, but I pride myself on paying my bills on time and, you know, my credit being good. So I wanted to make sure that I would be able to make good on my payments.
Because it was important to you to buy a car you could afford, right?
Yes.
Because you've heard stories about car dealers, right?
Yeah, you know, you hear all these stories about, you know, car dealers, you know, taking advantage, and I didn't want to give any reason for my car to be repossessed. I wanted to make sure that I was good on my word, and then I wouldn't have any problems.
So then after you signed all the papers, what happened next?
He actually took me out to the car, just kind of showed me, you know, all the gadgets in there and how everything worked, handed me the keys, and I drove off. I was actually really excited about the new car.
That excitement didn't last very long, did it?
No, not at all. The very next morning when I got up for work, I noticed a spot about 3 inches of oil on the concrete on my driveway. So I decided, okay, well, I'm gonna take it back and have them fix it.
Did they fix it?
They said they did, but no, they didn't fix it. It was about a week later, I noticed another spot of oil on the concrete, but it was much bigger this time.
So did you go back to the dealership again?
I did, but they didn't fix the leak.
Well, why not?
Well, it was almost as soon as I got there, I'm going over to talk to the mechanic, and Sam, the salesman that sold me the car, saw me, and he'd actually been calling me throughout the week, asking me out on dates. I don't care to date him. And so he was a little hostile with me. He came over and was really rude and said, you know, I can't remember, I think his exact words were, don't spend too much time on this girl, she's just gonna stick us on a payment.
Did anybody else hear him say that?
Oh, of course, the mechanic was there were a few employees there were actually some customers waiting in line. It was awful.
So instead of getting your car fixed, you're basically insulting and called the deadbeat.
Objection, Your Honor. He's mischaracterizing your testimony. Sustained.
So then what happened?
Well, I was shocked. I was humiliated. So I just grabbed my keys and ran out the door and decided to drive home. And I was in such an emotional state. I just started crying, and I actually had to pull over because I was crying so bad. You know, I put all my money into this car, and they wouldn't fix it for me.
What was your next contact with the dealership?
Well, the next day when I got home from work, I had a ton of messages on both my cell phone and my home phone from the dealership. They were calling all day while I was at work. And when I listened to the messages, they were calling to collect money from me because I had a balanced payment, which was very shocking.
Why was it shocking?
Because my monthly payment hadn't been due yet. I hadn't sent money. I hadn't authorized for any money to be drafted yet. It wasn't time for my payment. So why? That just didn't make sense.
Well, then what'd you do?
Well, I decided, okay, let me go find my contract and make sure that what's in the contract is what we discussed. So I pulled it out, and, you know, unfortunately, I read that what we discussed was not in the contract. It said that I was to pay $199 every 2 weeks, which is not what we talked about.
So you were then delinquent, but you wound up making good on that payment, right?
Yes, I was. I was able to get an advance from work.
So what happened after that?
Well, I've been driving the car. I got the advance, got it paid. Okay, we're all good. And I've been driving the car. I guess a couple weeks later, the car started to overheat. The gauge was going bonkers, and smoke was actually coming out from the engine, from under the hood. So I was like, oh my gosh. So I noticed the Pep Boys. I pulled in and asked if they could take a look at it. They said it was a major seal leak, I believe is what they said, and it was going to be $500. And I obviously couldn't afford $500, so I figured, okay, I'm in my 30-day warranty. I will take it back to the dealership to get it fixed. So that's what I did. I took it back.
Well, did Mr. Wright help you?
No, he didn't even want to talk about the oil leak. He started yelling at me for being late with my first payment, and even made the comment, this is why I don't finance young girls. And those were his exact words to me. And I told him, look, I just want my car fixed. He agreed that if I could make my next payment, that he'd work with me on the cost for the repair.
Did they fix the car for you that day?
No, they did not.
How long did it take them to get the car
It
back?
was about 5 days. He pretty much kept my car, hostage was a good word. He kept my car hostage for 5 days. And I had to arrange rides to work. I actually missed some school. It was a really big hassle.
So did his dealership ultimately fix the Honda for you?
No, it started actually leaking again. So I decided, okay, I'm just going to have to eat this money. So I took it to Pep Boys and paid $500 for them to fix it, since the dealership just wouldn't. So I then called the dealership and said, hey, this is what I had to do. I need I don't know, what's the word, a deferment, I think, on my payment. So, but they didn't do one.
What'd they do?
I actually didn't hear from them for a few days. And then one day at work, somebody comes yelling at me, hey, there's a big dude trying to get in your car. And so I go out there and I find out there's this guy out there trying to repossess my car, and it actually got a little violent. One of my friends that I work with was out there trying to stop him, and they got into a little scuffle, and I tried to get into the middle of it, and the big dude pushed me down to the ground. I had scrapes and bruises, and I think I sprained my wrist, and it just was not a pleasant experience.
Did you require medical care?
We have a first aid kit at work, so, you know, I treated my cuts and my scrapes with that.
How about the waiter, your friend, did he sustain injuries?
He did. His face was all scratched up and bruised, and his shirt was quite torn.
And you said the big guy from the car lot, he drove away with your car, he repossessed it, right?
Yes.
Did he get in trouble at work because of the fight?
I did, actually. I was fired, and my boss said that the fight was bad for business, and it upset the customers.
How long did you work there?
About a year, and I guess I don't know, about a year, make $450 a week.
Is it fair to say that you lost your job because of Sweet Ride Motors?
Absolutely.
Is it fair to say that you lost your trade-in valued at $1,500 because you're dealing with Sweet Ride Motors?
Absolutely.
Is it fair to say that you lost your down payment of $500 because of Sweet Ride Motors?
Yes.
You also lost the $500 you paid to Pep Boys to fix the car, right?
Yes.
You lost all the car payments you made, right?
Yeah.
No further questions, Your Honor. I'll pass the witness.
If I may, cross-examine. Your Honor, thank you very much. Ms. V, you claim that a fight broke out when your car was repossessed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you never called the police, did you?
Didn't feel the need, I suppose.
Well, why didn't you call the police?
I didn't feel it was necessary, I guess.
Well, isn't it true that you didn't call the police because you had a warrant out for your arrest because you had written a bounce check?
That check was for carpet cleaning, and they broke stuff in my apartment, so I stopped the check.
But the fact remains, miss, that you didn't call the police because you were afraid of the warrant or because there was really no altercation or fight at all.
There was a fight, and I got thrown to the ground, and I had cuts and scrapes to prove it.
Then the reason you didn't call the police is because of the warrant. Is that correct?
Objection, Your Honor. He's been arguing with the witness.
I'm going to overrule the objection. Answer the question.
I'll move along, Your Honor. You didn't go to a doctor or seek medical attention either, did you?
No.
And you don't have any pictures of these so-called scrapes or bruises, do you?
I didn't think to take any.
But you worked in a busy restaurant with lots of co-workers, didn't you?
Yes.
And isn't it true that nobody thought to take any pictures of this alleged altercation, correct?
They were too busy firing me.
Well, let's talk about that. Is it your contention that you were fired because of the fight?
It's not my contention, it's the truth.
And, excuse me, and this alleged fight happened in the parking lot right outside the doors of the restaurant?
That is correct.
But not one customer, not your boss, not your friends, not your coworkers called the police. Is that correct?
I guess not.
And you're telling the jury that the only reason you were fired was because of this alleged fight.
It was. My manager told me that it brought too much trouble and it was bad for business.
And how many times were you late for work the month prior to being fired?
I don't know, a few times maybe?
Does 4 times sound about right?
Hey, maybe. One of those times was whenever the car started overheating and smoke was coming out. And I had to get rides.
Ms. V, it seems you always have an excuse. It seems that you just, nothing's ever your
Your
fault.
Honor, there's no question. He's just arguing with the witness again.
Sustained. Jury, disregard that statement.
All right, Ms. V, let me turn your attention to when you first went to my client's car lot. Isn't it true that you went there because you knew some of the people that worked there?
That is correct.
In fact, you knew Sam, the salesman, didn't you?
Yes.
How'd you get to know Sam in the first place?
He was a patron of a previous employer.
Yeah, and what's the name of that previous employer?
The 2300 Club, and yes, it was a gentleman's club.
Well, I can't help but ask, what was your job there?
I waited tables, and that's all I did. I was there for about a year, and then it closed down.
Well, how well did you know Sam?
I knew him. I would say we were acquaintances. He came in regularly, and he's not the only one. And maybe we went for coffee a time or two.
Man, when you went to the car lot, did you specifically seek out Sam to help you to buy that car?
I did.
And you did that because you trusted him, didn't you?
I wouldn't say that I trusted him. I knew him, and I thought he'd guide me in the right direction.
All right. Let me turn your attention to that point in time when you were actually in the office going over the paperwork. How long were you in there?
don't know, about 20 or 30 minutes.
So are you telling the jury that in this 20 to 30 minute period, you never read the contract and you never saw that your payments were about $200 every 2 weeks?
That's exactly what happened. He didn't give me an opportunity. He was flipping through pages, sign here, initial here. He was just telling me what the contract said. And like I said, I didn't figure he would steer me in the wrong direction.
You're a nursing student, aren't you?
Yes.
And you have a pretty high grade point average, don't you?
I'm actually on the dean's list every semester, yes.
Well, that's really impressive because nursing school has lots of hard classes, don't they?
Yes.
And you have to pay a lot of attention, don't you? And in nursing school, they teach you the importance of taking notes and of being precise, don't they?
Yes, they
You wouldn't
do.
want to give a shot in the wrong place, would you? One little mistake in the details can cause the difference between life and death, can it?
Yes.
And sitting there with that salesman, that really wasn't your only opportunity to look at that contract, was it?
Well, no, I guess not. But I never, ever imagined they would, try to pull it over on me.
Well, that's because Sam didn't even actually close the deal, did he?
No. He actually...
Did he take you to another office?
Yes. He took me to Mr. Ride's office, and he was rude and intimidating, and he made me feel like an idiot when I asked any questions.
Ma'am, are you sure you're not talking about someone else? Because I know Tom Ride, and he wouldn't do that. Are you sure you're not talking about the F&I manager guy?
That's possible.
Okay, all right. Now, tell me, you say he was rude?
Yes.
Did he yell at you?
No.
Did he touch you or get physical with you in any way?
No.
Did he call you mean names?
No, he didn't call me names. But he insulted me. When I was trying to ask questions, he asked me, have you ever bought a car before?
So you thought he was insulting you when he was just asking you if you had ever bought a car before?
It was the way he said it, his body language, his mannerisms.
All right. How long were you in his office?
I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes.
And while you're in there, it's you and Mr. Elliott, who's the F&I manager, right? And between all of those papers that he's having you sign, nothing else happened? You were in there for about 15 minutes, and you didn't have a chance to look at the contract?
He, as well, was flipping quickly. Sign here, this is what this says.
Now, is this the biggest purchase you've ever made in your life?
Yes.
And as you said earlier, you've heard all these stories about car dealers, right? So you had your antenna up, correct?
I thought I did.
But you're a nursing student. You make the dean's list, and obviously you're very smart, don't you think?
Yeah.
You don't want to be taken advantage of, right?
No.
But you didn't even look at the contract?
He never gave me the chance to look through anything. Like I said, he was just initial here.
This the
Sign
biggest,
here.
is this the biggest purchase you've ever made?
Yes.
And you felt like you were rushed and you couldn't have stopped at any point in time to read that contract?
I had already been there for a really long time. I needed to get to work. I didn't want to be late.
Ma'am, couldn't you have asked to take the contract with you and just leave the office and study the papers for a while?
I never would have imagined, like I said, that they were going to do that to me.
Don't tell me again that you thought you were going to be late for work. Is that having something to do with
Objection, he's just arguing with the witness.
Sustained. I'll tell you what, you got a smart mouth. I'm fixing to hit you over the head.
Well, let's talk about that first payment you missed, the one you claim you didn't know was due. My client didn't repossess the car that time, did it?
No.
But you would agree with me that it could have repossessed the car if it had wanted to because you'd already missed the payment, correct?
I'm not a lawyer. I don't really know.
Well, let's break this down. If you make a promise to make a payment and you don't make it on time, don't you think they have an obligation or a right to pick up the car?
Yes, I suppose that's true.
And my client, if they did that, would have been within their rights to do so, correct?
I suppose so,
But
yes.
my client didn't pick up the car even though you missed the first payment, correct?
Correct.
In fact, they worked with you and accepted the payment a few days late, didn't they?
I wouldn't say that they worked with me.
Well, let's talk about the leaking issue. When your car started leaking and you went to Pep Boys to get it fixed, did you ever call anyone in my client's office and say, hey, that repair job you guys didn't quite work, and it's going to cost me $500. So will y'all take another look at it?
I've already given them several opportunities to fix it, and every time they've touched it, it never got fixed. So no.
So you made the decision to pay Pep Boys the $500, even though you knew you had a payment coming up.
I had no choice.
Sure, you had a choice. Didn't you choose to pay Pep Boys instead of paying my client?
Repeat the question.
Sure, you had a choice. Didn't you decide to make a conscious decision to pay Pep Boys for the repair instead of giving my client a chance to either fix the car or work something?
I gave them chances. I gave them several chances to fix the car.
No further questions, Your Honor. I'll pass this witness.
Ms. V, you may step down. Good job.
Judge, I'd like to call Mr. Wright to the stand now. Before we begin, Judge, could you have him remove the ridiculous hat and glasses?
No, I think it's improving his look, actually.
The lights, they hurt my eyes.
I saw it with him off a minute ago. I couldn't stand it.
I tell you what, I'll make a...
It's your courtroom, Judge.
Take it off.
Yeah, why don't you take it off so you can actually see, though?
I see just fine, the prescription.
Okay.
Please state your name.
Tom Ride?
You're the owner of Take 'em for Ride, Sweet Ride Motors, right?
Yes.
You're appearing here today as a representative from Sweet Ride Motors, right?
Yes.
You've been subpoenaed to be here today, and you're compelled to testify, right?
Yes.
Now, how long have you been in business in Fort Worth?
I've been in business for over 40 years. My father owned it before me, and then I bought the business from him in the early 90s.
You understand that you're here today to testify because of your selling a car to my client, a 2008 Honda Civic, right?
Yes, I do.
Now, did you personally deal with her at the car lot when she bought the car?
No, not directly.
You didn't have any conversations with her before she bought the car, right?
No, I just spoke with her a little bit before my guys put her in the car after she left out.
So you have no way of knowing whether any of the specific details that she's talked about, whether they're true or right?
No, I do not.
Let's talk about Sam, the salesman that worked with Emily. How long had he worked for you as of July when she bought the car?
About 2 years.
And does he still work for you?
No, he quit about 6 months ago.
In your judgment, was he a good employee?
He was okay. He wasn't the best salesman I ever had, but he wasn't the worst.
Did he ever get in trouble at work? Did you ever discipline him at all?
No, I don't think so.
Now, what would you refer to so you can be sure that you never had to discipline him?
I don't know what you mean.
Well, do you have any sort of write-ups, performance reviews, records of any kind about his job performance?
Look, we're a small company. We don't have time or money to run ourselves like a big company. If there's a problem with an employee, I handle it.
You got money for a hat and glasses, don't you?
That has nothing to do with this.
That's right. Any customers ever complain about Sam?
Not that I know of.
You're telling the jury that in 2 years of him working for you, you never got one complaint about him.
I didn't say that. I'm saying I'm sure there were some folks who weren't happy with some things. But other than that, not that I know of.
Well, I and they don't want you to remember, they don't want you to guess. Do you have any records, anything that shows you, is he a good employee or not?
Look, I'm the owner. I handle any complaints.
Do you track it? You keep track of it in your head? Do you keep a list someplace?
I don't have to write it down. I know whether someone is a problem or not.
You have no official record that keeps track of any of this, though, do you?
No, why would I? I'm the one that handles everything. This isn't like a big company, I told you. I'm the one responsible, and I know if there's a problem.
Well, let me ask you this. When Sam starts working for you, what kind of training did you provide him?
Well, he had worked other lots, and I knew him for years, so I knew he was a good salesman, knew the business. I taught him how we completed paperwork and did things like that. I taught him how to use our dealer management software. Fusion, the leading software by your pay here. Things like that.
Do you recall early on in this case, you provided me with a copy of your sales handbook?
Yes, I do.
And are you familiar with that sales handbook?
I should say so. I wrote it.
That sales handbook has a lot of information about selling cars, doesn't it?
Again, I wrote it.
But it doesn't mention anything about laws that apply to car sales, though, does it?
I don't recall. I'd have to look through it.
Well, you wrote it. I mean, we can look through it. But you wrote it. Will you agree that your handbook doesn't provide any guidance on what laws apply to car sales, what salesmen should or shouldn't say?
I suppose, but then again, the purpose of the manual is to help them sell cars, not teach them the law.
How about other forms of training? You provide him with any other forms of training so that he's able to follow laws when he's selling a car for you?
Like what?
Well, there's compliance courses on the internet. You haven't taken any of those?
Not to my knowledge.
There's books, there's manuals, there's all this stuff you can buy. You buy any of those?
Nope.
I think you belong to the local car dealer association, and they have classes. I think you belong to the state association. They have classes every year. You ever go to any of those?
No, I did not.
Would you agree that there's a lot of federal and state laws that apply when you're selling a car?
Listen, I run a business. I can't afford to take the time to go to those things. They cost hundreds, if not thousands of dollars.
But you don't offer any training to your employees that have not followed the law, do you?
I don't hire rookies. I only hire the people that have been in the business, that know and follow the law.
If that were true, we wouldn't be sitting here, would we?
Objection, Your Honor. Here's this plaintiff's lawyer arguing with the witness again. Please make him ask a question.
Rephrase.
Do you have any employment manuals or anything that tells your employees what you expect, how you expect them to treat your customers?
We treat all our customers with respect. We wouldn't be in the business if it weren't for them. And many come back and bring their friends to buy their cars.
Your Honor, objection. He didn't answer my question. He's just being non-responsive.
Sustained, please disregard that statement. Answer the question.
Sir, do you have any manuals or written instructions that tell your employees what actions are acceptable, what actions aren't acceptable when dealing with customers?
No, not like you're asking for. Again, we are a car dealership. I don't have thousands of dollars to spend on lawyers.
Or good clothes.
Hey.
I strike out my Honor. Now let's talk about Emily's Honda Civic. When and where did you buy it?
I bought it about 3 or 4 months earlier.
How much you paid for it?
About $8,000, maybe $8,200.
And in July 2012, when you sold it to Ms. V for $13,900, you got a cash down payment of $500 and a trade-in of $1,500, right?
Yes, but we were over allowed on the trade-in. I think we only sold it for like $1,000.
But the contract says it was valued at $1,500, right?
Yes.
Now, before you sold that car to Ms. V, you had sold it once before to another customer, right?
Yes.
But it was returned for an oil leak, right?
No, it was returned because the customer wanted a different car. We did fix an oil leak afterwards, but that's it.
Now, how much did you sell the car for the first time?
I don't recall. It was about the same. I like when I sold it to Miss V.
So about $14,000.
Right, give or take.
That customer put down a cash down payment?
I don't recall exactly, but probably about $500. Most of our customers can't go beyond that.
Plus a trade-in, you got a trade-in too, right?
I don't remember, but that sounds about right.
And almost immediately that customer complained about an oil leak and threatened to sue you, right?
I wouldn't say he threatened to sue me. He was upset about the oil leak, so we put him in another car.
So you took the Civic back, What work did you do on it before selling it again?
I had our mechanic fix the leak, which he did. It was just a small leak. These things happen.
Was it really fixed? As soon as Emily left the lot, it leaked again?
To my knowledge, it was fixed. The mechanic fixed it. He said he fixed it. Maybe it's from a leak. I don't know. I'm not the mechanic.
How about after you repossessed the car from Emily? Did you do any repairs to it then?
No, it was in good shape. It didn't need any repairs.
Yeah, that's right. It didn't need repairs because she already spent $500 of her hard-earned money and Pet Boys fixing the thing.
Objection, he's testifying, Your Honor.
Come on, Columbo. That's the right question.
Did you sell the Civic again after you repossessed it from Emily?
Yes, it sold again within a few weeks.
For about the same price, right?
About the same, give or take.
And about another $500, right?
I'm not exactly sure, but I'd say it's about $500.
So you sold it 3 times, and 3 times you got $500.
That sounds right.
So if I'm keeping score, you've accepted 3 cash down payments of $500, plus you've accepted 3 trade-ins on this one car.
I'm not sure, but that sounds right. I'm just not sure whether that last person had a trade-in or not.
And you admit that before you sold it to Emily, you already sold it to another person.
Yes.
And you bought the car at auction, right? So you knew it wasn't a new car.
Yes, it was owned previously.
So if I do my math, there was one owner before you bought it, and there was one owner before you sold it to Emily. So that's 2 owners. Then how's it a one-owner car?
No. The first time I sold it, the title never got transferred. I traded him out of that car before the paperwork went through. He never legally owned it.
You filled out a title application to get it transferred. You had the purchaser sign off, right?
Yes.
You signed the retail installment contract, sales tax was included, title paperwork saw on its way to the state, right?
No. We usually hold the paperwork until after the customer makes his first payment.
Well, that's a tricky loophole.
Objection, Your Honor, he's making legal conclusions and mischaracterizing the testimony.
Disregard, man, you're pissing me off.
Just another day at the office, Your Honor. Mr. Ryder, why do you write things in big fluorescent letters on the sides of cars?
I don't know, maybe because I want to sell some cars. It makes them more appealing,
You want to hype them up, don't you?
I suppose. I want them to notice them again so I can sell them. It's kind of what I do.
Well, it's more than that. I mean, you want these big positive things on the car so you can sell them. You're not going to say only been wrecked once or high mileage, right?
Of course not. We, unlike other people, we want them to buy the cars.
So when you write stuff like one owner and sweet ride on the car, it's because you want somebody like her to be attracted to that car.
Sure.
You said you've been in the car business a long time, right?
Yes.
You consider yourself an expert?
I don't know if I'm an expert legally and all, but yes, I know a lot about the car business.
You know there's laws regarding repossessions?
Generally, yes.
There's a long shot now, but I don't suppose you got a manual, a policy book, or something that guides you on how to handle them, do you know? Any?
I don't need one. I've been doing this my whole life.
You familiar with the laws that say you can't breach the peace during a repossession?
Yes, I know about that law. Look, I didn't repossess the car. I hired someone to do it, and I don't know if what happened, and he just picked up the car.
Yeah, you hired somebody to pick up the car for you, a company called Hardline Recovery. Let's talk about that. How long have you been using that?
A few years.
You investigate them prior to hiring?
I'm not sure what you mean. I talked to some other car dealers, and they got good recommendations. I like their pricing structures, so I hired them.
You ever look up to see if anybody sued them?
No, they came with high recommendations.
You ever look to see if they had problems with law enforcement?
No, like I said, they came highly recommended.
Do you ever ask what kind of due diligence that they do on their employees so that you're not hiring some thug to go out and take the car from your customer?
Like I said, they came with good references. That is their business. My business is selling cars.
Well, you've been in the business a long time selling cars. You're an expert in the car business. Would you agree that if a fight breaks out between your repossession agent and one of your customers, that the peace has been breached?
I wasn't there. I'm not going to guess what happened. There's 2 sides to every story.
But you were aware that a fight or something broke out when he went to get that car, right?
I wasn't there. A lot of times customers tell that there was yelling and screaming during a repossession. That isn't the breach of peace.
But you have no personal knowledge of what happened.
I was told there was an argument.
And you refused to return the car to her after that, didn't you?
I didn't return the car because she wouldn't pay for it. She said she couldn't pay for it.
Because she paid money to fix an oil leak that you wouldn't or couldn't fix.
That may be her story now, that she has a lawyer, but it wasn't her story then. She can't just drive for free. If I allowed that, I'd have been out of business years ago.
I pass the witness, Your Honor. No further questions.
Your Honor, may I take Mr. Wright on direct, please?
Sure.
Mr. Wright, how many folks do you employ at your car lot?
Right now we have 10 plus me. We're a little light because sales are off.
And do you manage every employee?
I sure do.
Now, Mr. Levine seemed to think that you should have employment manuals and lots of policy and procedure books for the employees. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't, because ultimately I'm responsible for everything that happens at the dealership. Everyone has to answer to me. I talk to my employees every day. If there's a problem, I handle it right there and then. This isn't some big company with different lots and managers and offices. Mr. Levine should try running a business sometime instead of putting people out of business.
Now, do your employees depend on you?
Of course they do.
Do they need you to make money, to be profitable, and not go out of business so they can all keep their jobs?
Of course, if we had a bad month or two, then I've got to cut overhead and I have to cut salary. If I have 3 or 4 bad months, it could drive me out of business.
And just to be clear, you are in business to make money, is that correct?
Yes, and that's still legal as far as I can tell. As much as I love the car business, I wouldn't be able to work for free.
Now, is your car lot a big part of your life?
Oh yes, it's been in my family my whole life. I hope my kids take it one day. In a lot of ways, it's like a member of our family.
Now, do you take pride in your car lot and the opportunity that you actually provide to folks to provide them with transportation?
I take great pride in it. My daddy taught me that we should help people, and that's the way I run my lot. I provide transportation to a lot of folks that the big banks and others don't care about.
Is your business a financially risky one?
Oh yeah, at any time we're financing someone, we're taking a risk. Most of the folks we finance don't have great credit scores, so we're taking the chance that they'll never repay us.
Now, do you make more or less money when somebody stops paying on their contract?
Definitely less.
For example,
Because I haven't had a chance to make money yet.
For example, let's look at the Honda Civic that the plaintiff bought. You spent about $8,000 when you bought that car, right?
Yes.
Now, is that your only expense, buying the car, the price you paid for it?
I wish. There are a lot of other expenses. I've got to pay the buyer if he goes to the auction instead of me. I've got some costs at the auction. Then I usually detail the cars and do some work on them, so then they're ready for sale.
So in this case, you've got about $8,000 invested in the car when you buy it, and then a bunch of other expenses just to put it out on the lot, right?
That's correct.
Then you have a lot of other expenses at the lot. Could we run through those?
Well, there are salaries, there's the rent, insurance, utility bills, my dealer management system to keep things running smoothly. That's from AutoStar, the #1 choice of all buy your favorite software. Then there's a bunch of other costs. There's a lot that goes into running business of that size, you know.
Well, when you sold the car to the plaintiff, did you get about $2,000 from her up front?
Yes, I did.
So you spent at least $8,000 on the car, and probably a lot more after that, and you got $2,000 back, so you're risking at least $6,000 of your own money if she doesn't pay you back.
That's true.
Is it better for you if she pays you back or if she doesn't pay you back?
I don't make any money if she doesn't pay me back. I need her and all my customers to pay me back so I can keep my doors open.
Now, do you lose money if you're forced to repossess or reset and resell the car?
Yes, I lose the benefit of the contract the customer signed. Plus, the accounts require a lot of work. Then it costs me to pay the repossession company to take back the car. Then I've got to file the paperwork with the state. Then I've got the cost of cleaning up the car to sell it again. I mean, there's just a lot of work.
Is it fair to say you lost a lot of money by Ms. V not paying her contract as she agreed?
Absolutely. I'd always rather keep somebody in the car than have to take it back.
Well, then why did you repossess her car?
Decisions like that are based on years of experience. We can lose a lot of money when someone drives and doesn't pay. Miles are getting put on the car, but customers are paying. They usually won't take care of the car, so it depreciates quickly. So if the car is damaged, we end up footing the bill. We take a lot of risk. We have to make hard decisions. When someone is late on their first payment, like she was, We pay close attention. She didn't call us first, we called her. She told us she couldn't afford the car, so I made the hard decision. She wasn't paying.
Is it safe to say that Ms. V's account simply was not a profitable account for you?
It's been an absolute disaster. The $2,000 and a few payments we got from her doesn't begin to cover our cost of having that car on our lot. Then factor in the legal fees I've had to pay you, and all the time I'm missing from being at the lot. I would have been much better off if she had just paid as promised. I didn't want to take that car back. I had to.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions. I'll pass the witness.
Sit down. All right, I think we're done. Do you want to talk about the last part? What happens next?
Ordinarily, we make closing arguments, but we don't have time to do that today. We're going to have the session in about 15 minutes. Y'all are welcome to come and we can talk more in detail about it. Just curious, quick show of hands, how many of y'all think that the plaintiff would have won this case?
They're cardio.
That's my people.
And the motion judge says?
That's a prejudiced jury if I've ever seen one. So what room is that in? What room is the discussion in? Somebody needs to yell it out. Sundance 2. So this room is going to be inside, and Sundance 2 is the discussion. Okay? Thank you.